Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. It's good to be back after a badly needed short little break. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope people were able to pick up the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah page, either from somebody else or by themselves, but be that as it may, whatever it is, we are picking up today on, we're in Chelik Beis, Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph. We're picking up on the top line of Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph, Siman Kuf Nun Zayin, Dine Zman Kvias Suda, the halachos pertaining to the proper time for one to sit down and be Kveya Suda, the proper time for one to sit down and eat his meal, Ubay Sif Echad, and here we have one Sif. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph, Kishiagia Shar Revius, when we reach the fourth hour of the day. So this is the beginning of the fourth hour of the day. Yikba Su'udasai, that is the proper time for one to be Kaveya his Suda, to sit down and eat his daytime meal. So we're talking here about hours of the day. What we're doing is we're splitting the day into 12 equal hours. Shois Zmaniyos. We, according to the Magen Avram, we would divide the day from Alois HaShachar until Tzeis HaKechavim. We'd take that amount of minutes, divide it into 12 equal hours. So hour number one begins with Alois HaShachar. Hour number two is the second hour. When we come to the beginning of the fourth hour, says the Mechaber, that is the proper time to be Kaveya Seuda. So if you want to kind of use the numbers that we're familiar with on our clock, let's say you divide the day from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. And let's say every hour is going to have 60 minutes, which is not the case. But let's just use that as a mashal. So 6 o'clock would be the beginning of the first hour, 7 is the beginning of the second hour, 8 is the beginning of the third hour, 9 o'clock is the beginning of the fourth hour. Says the Mechaber, when should you sit down to be Kaveya Suda? You should sit down to be Kaveya Suda at 9 o'clock, the beginning of the fourth hour of the day. But there are some caveats here. Says the Mechaber, V'imu Talmid Chacham v'Isik Bilimudai, if the individual that we're addressing is a Talmid Chacham, if he's somebody who's learning Torah, then Yamtin Ad Shashishis, then he should wait for the sixth hour of the day. But V'lo Ya'acher Yoser, he should not wait longer than that to be Kaveya Suda. Why? Dehevi Kizorik Evan Lechemes, because to eat after the end of the sixth hour of the day is akin to throwing a stone into a leather wine flask. Imloi ta'am midi b'tzafra, unless he already at least tasted something beforehand. Very abstract, very poetic. Let's get into it. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in Aleph. Kishiagia Sharavias. The Mechaber told us that the proper time to be Kivei Suda in the morning is the beginning of the fourth hour. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Hainu L'chol Adam. That's for the general population. Aval Payalim, but when it comes to physical laborers, Amrinan b'Gemara, the Gemara tells us the Shabbos Daf Yod Amud Aleph, Dizman Seudasan Hu B'Shach Hamishis, that they are supposed to eat at the beginning of the fifth hour. More on that soon. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in Beis, Revius, the general populace eats at the beginning of the fourth hour. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Kishekam ba'amod hashachar. When we're using these numbers, the beginning of the fourth hour for the general populace, the beginning of the fifth hour for laborers, the beginning of the sixth hour for Talmidei Chachamim, when we're using these numbers, that's all assuming Kishekam ba'amod hashachar, that you got up and you got out of bed right away at the beginning of the first hour of the day. So, okay, you got up at Alois HaShachar, so now the proper time to eat is at the beginning of the fourth hour of the day. But what if you stayed in bed and you got up at the second hour of the day, or 2.5, and you kind of just made Shacharis for Zman Kriyishma, which is the third hour of the day? So what if you got up later? So now you got to run to eat breakfast at the beginning of the fourth hour of the day? Says the Chavetz Chaim, no. Kishakam ba'amod hashachar, if you got up at amod hashachar, so then chashvin and hashois b'tchilas hayom. So then we count the hours from the very beginning of the day. Ukishakam mimitasa yakakach, But if you stayed in bed and you got up late, then chashvinan azman me'esha kam mimitasai. Then the Magen Avram says, now you count 4 hours from the time that you got up. So this is not a zman that you're going to find on the zmanim chart. This is not like, Zman Kriyashma is the 3rd hour of the day. You can take a look at the Zmanim chart and they'll tell you when Zman Kriyashma is. Zman Kriyashma is not going to vary by when you got up. A lot of people would love it to be that way, but that's not the way it is. Zman Kriyashma is a fixed time, right? Ad Sof Shalishis, and that goes, again, depending on the Machlokes, the Magen Avram, the Gra, it's the end of the 3rd hour of the day, either counting from Alois or counting from Netzachama. It's not dependent at all by when you got up. But over here, when we're talking about being Kaveh Suda, says the Magen Avram, that's going to be dependent on when you got up. Whenever you get up, 4 hours later, that's the time for you to eat. Ad Shashishis, Ais Katan Gimel, the Mechaber said that the Talmid Chacham should wait for the 6th hour. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Hainu Tchilas Shashishis, at the beginning of the 6th hour. So if we use our mashal of 6 o'clock, right? So 6 o'clock is the beginning of the 1st hour, 7 is the beginning of the 2nd, 8 is the beginning of the 3rd, 9 is the beginning of the 4th, 10 is the beginning of the 5th, 11 o'clock is the beginning of the 6th hour. The Talmid Chacham should sit down to be Kaveh Suda at 11 o'clock, at the beginning of the Shashishis. And he should not delay his meal. He certainly should not delay his meal until past the end of the 6th hour, because then it's like the Mechaber said, that's Kizarik Evan Lechemes, that's like throwing a stone into a leather wine flask, which we're still going to have to discuss. And the Chavetz Chaim reminds us that when we're talking about how to count these hours, we're not necessarily talking about 60-minute hours. We're talking about proportional hours. You take the amount of daylight during the day and divide it into 12 equal parts. Now, I just want to point out, before we even go weiter, something very interesting over here. The first thing you should know is that this whole discussion that we're having, this Mechaber, if you take a look at the Be'er HaGoyla here, Ois Katan Aleph, he brings this down from Psachim Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis and Shabbos Daf Yud. Now this actually comes from a Brisa. The Brisa says, let's find it over here, Tana Rabbanon, we learned in a Brisa, Shar Rishona, the 1st hour of the day, Maichal Ludim, that is the time for the Suda for the Ludim. Who are the Ludim? Not very nice people. Rashi says Ludim, Uma Shekirin Kanlinish. I don't know what that translated to nowadays. Va'ichle Odom Hein. They were cannibals. Veheim Ra'av Sonin. And they're very gluttonous people. So the Bryce is telling me that to eat the 1st hour of the day, to get up and right away be Kaveh Suda, that's a glutton. That's, cannibals. They get up and they eat right away the 1st hour of the day. Shnia, to eat in the 2nd hour of the day, Michael Listim. That was the habit of bandits. Why? Why would bandits eat in the 2nd hour of the day? Because the bandits, they're up the whole night doing their banditry. I just invented a new word, I think. Right? So they're up in the middle of the night performing their ill deeds, and they got to catch some sleep. So the 1st hour of the day, they're sleeping. The 2nd hour of the day, bandits are also gluttonous people. So they get up, they have an onus. They can't eat during the 1st hour of the day because that's when they're catching a nap. But right away, in the 2nd hour of the day, that's when they eat. Shlishis, the 3rd hour of the day, Michael Yershin. That's when people who have inherited wealth, they eat during the 3rd hour of the day. Why? Because they're Leidegayers. They live a life of leisure. They have inherited wealth that they never worked for, so they can eat during the 3rd hour of the day. Revius, the 4th hour of the day. Now you're going to have a kasha right away when I read this, but bear with me. The Gemara is going to ask the kasha. Revius, the 4th hour of the day, Michael Payalim. That's when laborers eat. Chamishis, the 5th hour of the day, Michael Kolodom. That's when all people, that's when the general populace eats. Frak the Gemara, Ini, could this be right? that the 4th hour is the time for the laborers to eat, and the 5th hour is the time for the general populace. For the Gemara Amar Rav Papa, we have a mimer from Rav Papa. We're quoting a brisa. A brisa is the words of the Tanoim. Now we have Rav Papa, who's an Amora, and we have Rav Papa who says not like this. V'amar Rav Papa says, Revius man suda l'chaladam, that the 4th hour is the time for the general populace, not the 5th hour. Ella, the Gemara says we have to tweak it a little bit. We have to tweak our recording of the brisa. It was a little bit off. Revius Michael Kaladam, the 4th hour is taka, the proper time for the general populace to eat. Chamishes Michael Payalim, the 5th hour is the time that the Payalim, that the laborers eat. And Shishis Michael Talmid Chacham, and the 6th hour is when Talmid Chachamim eat. So, and then Mikan ve'elich, after the 6th hour, Kizarik Evan Lechemas is like throwing a stone into a wine flask. So this is where this Gemara comes from. Now, the reason the Payalim eat later is because the Payalim are very busy. They're engaged in their work. They have a baal. They have an employer who is watching them and make sure that they're doing their work. And they can't necessarily just go ahead and break in the 4th hour to eat. So, and they're willing to be mitzayir themselves, getting that from a marshal. I think it's a marshal, either a marshal or maral, that they're willing to be mitzayir themselves, and they're willing to go another hour without eating in order to earn a living, in order to earn a livelihood. Listen, everybody is ma'aseh nefesh in order to earn a paycheck, right? Everybody who working involves a certain amount of mesiras nefesh. So the Payalim have mesiras nefesh to earn their paycheck, and they don't eat during the 4th hour like everybody else does. They push it off till the 5th hour. Talmidei Chachamim eat by the 6th hour. Why do Talmidei Chachamim eat by the 6th hour? Because they're busy learning. But I want to add something to that. There's a very interesting pasuk. The pasuk says in Parshas Balak, we know the story of Balak. Balak sent messengers to hire Bilam. Bilam was an accomplished sorcerer, so he went to hire Bilam. Bilam should come and curse Klal Yisrael, so that Klal Yisrael shouldn't be victorious in Milchama against Midian and Moav. So first Balak sent messengers to Bilam, and Bilam rejected them. Then Balak sent more chashuv messengers to Bilam, and then the Rebbeinu Shalom told Bilam, listen, you want to go? Go. You want to go with them? Go with them. But I'm warning you, you're only going to be able to say what the words that I put in your mouth. You have no personal shlita over here. You have no ability to decide what you're going to say and what you're not going to say. You're going to say the words that I put in your mouth. And kachava. Bilam went ahead. He tried to give a klala. It didn't work. He kept on giving brachas to Klal Yisrael instead. Now the pasuk says that when Bilam decided to go with the messengers from Balak, the pasuk says, "Vayakam Bilam baboker." Bilam got up in the morning. The implication of the pasuk is he got up early. Okay, the early bird gets the worm. He made sure he set his alarm clock. He wanted to daven v'sikin that day. He's going on a very important mission to go curse Klal Yisrael. So vayakam Bilam baboker. He got up early in the morning. Vayachavayish es asoinoi. And he went ahead and he saddled his donkey. Vayelichim sarei Moav, and he went with the sarei Moav. Why does the pasuk tell me vayachavayish es asoinoi? Why do I have to know that he saddled his donkey? It makes a difference to me. Rashi tells us, no, the pasuk's telling you something very important. Says Rashi, vayachavayish es asoinoi, mikan, we learn from here, shahasina mekalkelas es ashura, that hatred could go ahead and twist things. Explains Rashi, shachavash hu ba'atzmoi. You think Bilam didn't have servants? You think Bilam didn't have somebody taking care of his donkey? You think Bilam didn't have somebody who he could say, make sure the donkey is ready for me tomorrow morning by nets? Why did he have to go ahead and saddle his own donkey? Says Rashi, shachavash hu ba'atzmoi. Out of his hatred for Klal Yisrael, he wasn't going to leave this to a servant. He wanted to do everything by himself. He went ahead and he saddled the donkey on his own. Amra HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Rebbeinu Shalom said to Bilam, Rasha, Kfar kidamcha Avram avim. Avram, the father of Klal Yisrael, he beat you to the punch. Shenamar, because it says in the pasuk by Avram Avinu, by the Akedah, Vayashkem Avraham ba'boker. Avram got up early in the morning to go to the Akedah. Vayachav Oishes Chamoiroi, and he saddled his own donkey. So you should know that Avram Avinu beat you to the punch. Rav Moshe, the Rishiva Zatzal, Zechut Tzaddik Kadosh Lavracha, asks, what's going on here in Rashi? What was this conversation between the Rabbeinu Shalom and Bilam? It sounds like Bilam was trying to do something, and the Rabbeinu Shalom told him it's not going to work. Rasha, Kvar Kidam Chaviem, their father, Avram Avinu, beat you to the punch. What was Bilam trying to do? What was the Rabbeinu Shalom's answer? Says Rav Moshe, and this is a very, very, very important limud. Says Rav Moshe, he says, look, Bilam was trying to go embark on a journey to curse Klal Yisrael. Now, Bilam was no fool. I mean, he was a fool in certain ways, but he was the type of person that we say he was so smart and so stupid. Bilam knew that he can't go curse Klal Yisrael without finding some kind of a kitrug. He had to find a weakness in Klal Yisrael that he could take advantage of and expose to the Rabbeinu Shalom, like the Satan. The Satan comes, and the Satan is mekatreg. The Satan acts like a prosecutor, and he points out our weaknesses to the Rabbeinu Shalom. That's what Bilam was trying to do. Bilam was trying to find and exploit a weakness in Klal Yisrael that he should be able to use as a hook to hang his klala on. So what did he do? He said to himself, you know what? I know that really this idea of going to curse Klal Yisrael, not really a good thing. I'm not doing something that the Rebbe Shalom is going to be happy with. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be moiser nefesh to do my rishus. I'm going to get up early, which is a hard thing for me. I'm going to be moiser nefesh to go do my rishus, to go curse Klal Yisrael. Not only that, I'm going to go saddle my own donkey, which is a pagia in my covet. And I'm going to go be moiser nefesh and saddle my own donkey to do my rishus, to go curse Klal Yisrael. What's that going to accomplish? It's going to show the Rabbeinu Shalom, take a look at Klal Yisrael. You love this Klal Yisrael. Are they moiser nefesh the way I'm moiser nefesh? I'm going ahead and I'm being moiser nefesh like this to get up early in the morning and go saddle my own donkey for what? To go do an act of rishus. Are they moiser nefesh for your Torah mitzvahs like this? If the answer is no, chas v'chalila, then Bilam would have found a very powerful kitrug. He would have found something to be mekatrig against Klal Yisrael and used that as a basis for his klala. Said the Rabbeinu Shalom, Rasha, kvar kidamcha avihem. Their father Avram Avinu beat you to the punch. When he went to the Akedah, which was an act of unbelievable emunah, bitachon, and tzidkus, he went, and it says, Vayakam ba'boker, vayachav oishes chamoiroi. He went ahead and he had the Mesiris Nefesh for the Akedah that you're trying to have. Now, okay, that was Avram Avinu. What does that have to do with Klal Yisrael? The answer is Davar Pashat. Avram Avinu already taught this lesson to Klal Yisrael. Not only did he teach the lesson to Klal Yisrael, but he already installed this midah in the genes, in the DNA of Klal Yisrael. It's already programmed into them, and they learn it, and they hear shmuzim about it. We all know that in order to be miyasid davar chashuv in Klal Yisrael and Torah mitzvahs, you need Mesiris Nefesh. You need Mesiris Nefesh. We all know the value of Mesiris Nefesh. We're going now, it's the beginning of El. You want to have a good shot, you want to come to Yom Adin with a schus, find something that you could be a little bit moiser nefesh between now and Rosh Hashanah, a little extra Mesiris Nefesh. Get up a little bit extra early in the morning, have a quick little seder, 5 minutes to learn Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, or whatever it is. But something that you could say, look, I'm being moiser nefesh for Torah mitzvahs. That's what the Rebbe Shalom's answer to Bilam was. Rasha kvar kidam chaviem. What does this have to do with this? Take a look at what the Bryce is telling me. The Bryce is telling me that the general populace is Kaveh Suda in the 4th hour. Payalim, laborers, they're Kaveh Suda in the 5th hour. Why are they kaveh suda in the 5th hour? Because they're moise nefesh. What are they moise nefesh for? They're moise nefesh for their paycheck. They're moise nefesh to earn money. They're being moise nefesh. Talmidei Chachamim, they eat b'shas shishis. Why? Because the Talmid Chacham has to make sure that he's moise nefesh at least as much as the pile. Do we want to have that the pile gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning because he's got to get to work, and the Ben Torah is a later gear and he gets up and davens at 8:30? We don't want that. So we want to make sure that the Talmid Chacham has at least as much Mesiras Nefesh in his pocket as the pile does, as the laborer does. Otherwise, chas v'shalom, there could be a kitrig. I know I'm taking a lot of time on this, but I can't resist. There's a beautiful pasuk in Tehillim. They're all beautiful pasukim. But David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Shav lachem mashkimei kum ma'achrei sheves oichle lechem ha'atzavim ken yitein liyadidoi shena. Pashat pshat in the pasuk is, Shav lachem mashkimei kum. It's a waste of time, you people who get up early. Ma'achrei sheves, you go to sleep late. Why? Oichle lechem ha'atzavim, and you eat the bread of aggravation. Meaning, you get up early, you go to sleep late, you're killing yourself for parnasa. Oichle lechem. David HaMelech says, Shav lechem. It's a waste of time. Why? Kein yitein liyadidoi shena. The Rebbeinu Shalom could give his yedid. If you're a yedid of the Rebbeinu Shalom, if you're beloved to the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Rebbeinu Shalom could give you sleep. What? The Rebbeinu Shalom needs you to kill yourself for a parnasa? The Rebbeinu Shalom is the one that's giving you the parnasa. So if you're a yedid of the Rebbeinu Shalom, what do you got to get up early, go to sleep late for? You don't have to be oichle lechem ha'atzavim. You don't have to eat the bread of aggravation, getting up early, go to sleep late. The Rebbeinu Shalom could give his beloved sleep. If you learn pshat in the pasuk that way, very pashut pshat, it sounds like what David HaMelech is saying is, look, you get up early to daven at the early minyan so that you should be at work extra early. You stay in the office an extra 2 hours at night to get your work done. Nah, what are you doing it for? If the Rebbeinu Shalom likes you, he'll give you a parnasa anyway. So tomorrow morning, sleep late. And leave the office at 5 o'clock and don't worry. To say that that's what the pasuk means, first of all, how are you becoming a yedid of the Rebbeinu Shalom? What makes you a yedid? The pasuk is just telling you, assume that you're a yedid and sleep late, leave early. Rashi, the beautiful Rashi to that pasuk. Rashi changes the word yedid. Kein yitein liyadidoi shena, we learned that yedidoi means to his beloved. A lashon of yedid nefesh, a beloved. Says Rashi, there's another shirish in yedidai, and that's the shirish of the word misnaded, which means to shake or to move around. Says Rashi, pshat in the pasuk is like this: Shav lachem ashkimei kum. It's a waste of time for you to get up early, ma'achrei sheves, go to sleep late, oichle lechem ha'atzavim, eat the bread of aggravation, and kill yourself for parnasa. What should you do instead? Kain yitain liyadidoi shena. The Rebbeinu Shalom will give. Kain yitain. The Rebbeinu Shalom will give parnasa. To who? Kain yitain liyadidoi shena. To the people who shake sleep off their eyes in order to learn Torah. You're getting up early, you're going to sleep late. Don't get up early and go to sleep late in order to work. Get up early and go to sleep late in order to learn Torah. If you're moise nefesh for Torah, that you get up early and you shake the sleep off your eyes at night to learn Torah, ken yitain. Then the Rebbeinu Shalom will give you parnasa. Okay, let's go weiter. So we're up to Mishnah Berurah's cotton dalit. The Mechaber said that if you eat after the end of the 6th hour, that's heavy kizarik even lechemes. That's like throwing a stone into a wine flask. Okay. Very poetic, but what does it mean? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kigain, for example, Chemas yayin shechasar. You have a leather wine flask, and it's missing wine. It's not full. Let's say it's halfway full. Val yedei zen nifkam. And because of that, the wine will become ruined. Why will the wine become ruined? Because once you have a half a bottle of wine, now the wine inside is exposed to oxygen. It's exposed to the air. Oxygen stimulates, presence of oxygen is going to stimulate further fermentation. Now the wine could turn to vinegar. When you buy a bottle of wine, even though there's a little space in the bottle, before they seal that bottle, they put in either nitrogen or argon, which are inert gases that don't feed the process of fermentation. But once you open a bottle of wine, now you have a half a bottle of wine. It's half full of wine, half full of oxygen. Now already you can have fermentation. So says the Mishnah Berurah, and he's basing this on a Rashi. Not sure if this Rashi is in Shabbos or in Psachim. I think this Rashi is in Psachim, not in Shabbos. So once you have, if you have a flask that's half empty, so now nifkam, now the wine could become ruined. So you want to fill up the flask. But the problem is you don't have any additional wine. You don't have more wine to put in the flask. So you come up with a cute chap. V'zoyrik l'soichei even. So you throw in a stone. Sheyismale. You throw in a stone. The stone displaces the wine. And now it could fill the flask up. Okay. So the truth is you accomplished what you needed to accomplish. That the wine should not get ruined because it won't be exposed to oxygen. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, this does not either improve the wine or ruin the wine, meaning it doesn't change the wine. The wine is the same as it was before, and you have no more wine and you have no less wine. You had a half-empty flask, now you have a full flask. But do you have more wine? You don't have more wine. You didn't increase the volume of wine by throwing in a stone. You just displaced the oxygen. So, okay, you solved your problem, but you didn't increase the wine. Of course, it would be better if you'd be able to fill up the flask with wine. So too over here, if you eat after the 6th hour. If you didn't eat until the 6th hour, your flask, your stomach is empty, right? So you have an empty stomach. That's a problem. You want to fix it. You want to fill your stomach up. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kach bezu, ha'achila lo yitaisef lo kayach al yedei zeh. It's true. Before you had an empty stomach, now you can have a full stomach by virtue of the fact that you ate. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, that's the same thing as the wine flask. Before you had a half-empty wine flask, now you have a full wine flask. But is it full of wine? No, it's wine in a stone. So you didn't accomplish getting more wine. So too, before you had an empty stomach, now you have a full stomach. But you didn't accomplish anything. You know why you didn't accomplish anything? Because kach bezu ha'achila, with this eating, lo yitaisef lo kayach al yedei zeh. You're not going to get any kayach from the eating that you eat now. What the Mishnah Berurah, based on the Brisa, based on the Rishonim, seems to be saying is, it's true that your stomach was empty and now your stomach is full, but your body is not going to be able to absorb the nutrients. In order for your body to be able to process the food and absorb the nutrients and give you kayach, you have to eat at the right time. If you wait until it's too late, yeah, your stomach is full, but the food's not going to accomplish anything. Says the Mishnah Berurah weiter. Now he just gives some other tips for healthy eating. The Mishnah Berurah says that it is better to eat lighter during the day and heavier at night. Okay. The yoichal shtei pamim b'yom, and you should eat twice during the day im chalash libay, if by nature you're weak. Val yamali kreisay b'pam achas, and don't fill yourself up by eating one big meal. Now, what the Mishnah Berurah is telling us two different things over here. First of all, he's telling us a yesod that it's better to eat lighter during the day and heavier at night. And he's, let's read a little bit weiter. He's going to base this on a pasuk. V'yisnaig, and we should comport ourselves al pi masha kasav, according to what it says in the pasuk b'inyan amon, when it comes to the mun and the slav. We know that the Rebbeinu gave two different types of food to Klal Yisrael to eat in the Midbar. He gave them mun, and then at night he gave them slav, birds, quail, I think they generally translate it as, to eat. Now that's a type of meat. And the pasuk says, "But erev basar lechel," the Rebbeinu gave you basar, meat. He gave you the slav in the evening. The lechem babayker lisbaya, and lechem, the mun, in the morning to fill up on. So what do you see? You see that during the day you ate lechem. which is lighter than the meat, than the slav that you ate ba'erev. Therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, eat lighter during the day and heavier at night. And the truth is, you can see this in the Chayvus Alavavos. The Chayvus Alavavos in Shar Precious says, V'achiloscha b'yoyim tia yoysa kala me'asher achiloscha ba'erev. What you eat during the day should be lighter than what you eat at night. Im hincha noyeg lechel pamayim b'yoyim, especially if you're accustomed to eating twice during the day. Kedei she'evarecha yisnoyayu b'yoyim b'kalos. So that during the day, you should be light and quick on your feet, so that you should be able to perform Avodas Hashem. What he's saying is, don't eat a heavy meal during the day. We know that Shabbos afternoon, you eat the cholent, and after the cholent, you're bombed, and you sit down on the couch and you fall asleep. We don't want that during the day. On a regular day, you're supposed to be busy with Avodas Hashem. So we don't want you to eat a heavy meal during the day and then be conked out, for a couple of hours after your meal. At night, fine, you eat a heavy meal and then you go to sleep. Okay, but not during the day. Now, this doesn't work for some people. Some people can't eat a heavy meal at night. If they eat a heavy meal at night, it sits on them, and nowadays we have these problems with reflux and everything else. So it doesn't work for everybody. But as a general rule, this is what the Mishnah Berurah is basing on Chazal, is the best way to comport yourself. Also, when he talks over here about eating twice during the day, if you're by nature weak, they were in the habit of eating basically 2 meals during the day. One meal was during the day, earlier in the day. The other meal was balayla. The other meal was by night. So it sounds like they would convey a Suda at Shah Revius, let's say, the 4th hour of the day. They would convey a Suda, and they ate a significant breakfast. And that was it for the rest of the day. Maybe a light snack here and there, maybe. But then at night, before they went to sleep, they ate what kaveh Suda again, and they ate a significant Suda at night. That's why during the week you had 2 Sudas, and on Shabbos, for Einik Shabbos, we have Sholosh Sudas. We add on an extra meal for Kavod Shabbos and Einik Shabbos that you don't have the rest of the week. So they didn't have breakfast, lunch, and supper. It was more like a significant brunch and then a significant supper. Issa b'Zayir Parshas B'Shalach, which the word brings down from the Zayir in Parshas B'Shalach. Loi libai inish lavashala mezayna. A person should not cook his food min yoima lo yoima ichare. Don't cook today for tomorrow. Today, cook what you need today. You need supper today, make supper today. Don't say, I'm making supper for today and for tomorrow. V'loi la'akiv mezayna min yoima lo yoima ichare. And don't leave over food from today for tomorrow. Don't say, okay, I'm going to have leftovers. Now I have my food for tomorrow. Don't do that. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Tam, the reason for this is, Kedei sheyevakesh b'chol yoyim al mizaynoisav. Person's supposed to come to the Rabbeinu Shalom, Baruch Aleinu Hashem Elokeinu es Hashana Azois, v'ez kol mineis v'asala tova. You're supposed to be mevakesh your parnasa from the Rabbeinu Shalom on a daily basis. V'yishtakla yadai berchan b'chol yoyima v'yoyima. And then the Rabbeinu Shalom will give you bracha each day. In other words, a person is not supposed to put himself in a situation where he feels, oh no, I don't have to ask the Rabbeinu Shalom for parnasa today. I'm good. I cooked yesterday. I know where my food is going on my table from today. What do you mean? Yesterday I bought a loaf of bread to cover me for 2 days. I got plenty of eggs in the refrigerator. I'm good for breakfast for 2 days. Lunch, when I made lunch yesterday, I made double. Supper, I already made supper yesterday. So I'm good. Well, so why do I need 19 brachas in my Shemoneh Esrei today? Really, I could cross one out. I don't need the bracha of Baruch Aleinu today. Maybe tomorrow I'll have to be Mavakish Baruch Aleinu. But today I'm good. Well, so then, that's Emunah B'tachan? No. That's B'tachan in your refrigerator. That's not B'tachan in the Rabbeinu Shalom. By the way, just to extrapolate that a little bit, when a person has $500,000 in the bank, and he says, I'm a big Baal B'tachan. I know, my parnasa comes from the Rabbeinu Shalom. Everything else, yeah. Do you really have B'tachan in the Rabbeinu Shalom, or do you have B'tachan in the bank? What do you say when you don't have $500,000 in the bank? What do you say when you have $200 in the bank? Or you have $60 in the bank? Or maybe you're negative $60 in the bank. Do you still say, no, I'm good. I'm good. The Rebbe Shem gave me today. The Rebbe Shem gave me yesterday. The Rebbe Shem gave me last month. The Rebbe Shem, like Yaakov Avinu says, Me oidi ad hayom hazeh. The Rebbe Shem took care of me, me oidi, from when I first came into existence, ad hayom hazeh, till this day, the Rebbe Shem took care of me. So you took care of me until now. Take care of me tomorrow. That's the way it's supposed to be. A person is not supposed to have bitachon on what he has in the fridge. So make food for today, and then tomorrow is tomorrow. Get up tomorrow morning, daven, be mevakish parnasa from the Rebbe Shem for a new day. That's what the Zohar is telling us over here. Okay, finally we come to the end of this very interesting Siman, where the Mechaber told us that if you eat after the 6th hour, that's a waste of time. That's throwing a stone into the flask. But the Mechaber had a little bit of a caveat. He said, if you didn't taste anything, if you didn't eat anything at all in the morning, and then you don't eat anything until after the 6th hour, that's a waste of time. But if you ate at least something at some point of the morning, then what you eat even after the 6th hour is beneficial. Then you will be able to absorb the nutrients and get kayach from that eating. Says the Mishnah Berurah cut in hay. Im loy ta'midi b'tzafra, avalim ta'midi, but if you at least tasted something earlier in the day, then loy heavy kizarik even lechemas, then it's not like throwing a stone into a flask. Umikamakim, nevertheless, says the Chavetz Chaim, lechatchila nireh, lechatchila it would appear, that it is better to make sure that you're kaveh suda by, before the end of the 6th hour, afim tamid b'tzafra. Even if you had a coffee in the morning, still you should make sure to be kaveh suda before the 6th hour. And he's a raya for the Gemara in Sukkah. The hadar on hayalechal pashachris k'tzas, because we know that in the days of Chazal, they were in the habit of eating some kind of pashachris. They ate something early in the day, even before the 4th hour. Like the Gemara says, Sukkot af chavav amid aleph, kad to'am bar beirav ayalakala. The way a ben Torah tastes something before he goes into the Rebbe's shir, to make sure that he'll be able to listen to the shir and not be starving the whole time during the shir. And still in all, even though we see that they were in the habit of tasting at least something earlier in the day, still in all, the Gemara says, Shabbos Taf Yud Amud Aleph, Dizman Sudu Hachashishis, that the Ben Torah should make sure to eat before the 6th hour. Why? He tasted something before he went into shir. So why does he have to be nizar to eat before Shashishis? So it must be that even though the Mechaber says that if you tasted something in the morning, it's not like throwing a stone into a flask, still in all, Mikamaka, nevertheless, says the Mishnah Berurah, still better to make sure that you eat before the end of the 6th hour of the day. Okay, that concludes Siman Kufdon Zion. Now we're going to begin Hilchas netilas yadayim l'suda. Siman Kufdon Ches Dinei netilas yadayim l'suda. The halachos that govern netilas yadayim before a seuda, uba yud gimel seifim, and here we have 13 seifim, and of course these are the halachos of what we know colloquially as washing. Before we have a seuda with bread, we have to wash, and we have to make a bracha. Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav etzivanu al netilas yadayim. We're going to learn these halachos. Says, let's at least get started. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph. Kishayavai lechal pas. When you come to eat a Suda with bread, what type of bread, says the Mechaber? Shemevarchin olav hamoitzi. When you're going to sit down to eat bread of the type that you make a hamoitzi on. Because we know that there are, quote-unquote, breads that you do not make hamoitzi on. Pas haba b'kisnin. Pas haba b'kisnin is essentially a bread. Pizza dough is essentially bread dough. It's belila ava. It's a heavy dough. It's not like a cake batter. It's not a liquidy batter. It's a belila ava. It's very often, it's flour, water. It's essentially a bread dough. Yet, we don't make a hamoitzi on it unless we kaveh a suda, which we'll get to those halachos. Everybody's wondering right now already, 2 slices, 10 slices, 3 slices, whatever. We'll get to that later on. But certainly you sit down to eat a slice of pizza. We don't wash. We don't make a hamoitzi on a slice of pizza. Why? Because it's pas haba b'kisnin. It's a bread dough, but it's filled or topped with other types of foods and flavorings. The Gemara's traditional case of pas haba b'kisnin is, again, essentially a bread dough, and it's filled with sugar, nuts. That's pas haba b'kisnin. It's not something that we traditionally kaveh sud on. We don't make hamoitzi. So over here, when we're talking about washing, the Mechaber is very careful to tell you we're talking about washing on what kind of bread? On bread that you make hamoitzi on. So kishayavai lechal pas shemavarchan alav hamoitzi. When you come to eat bread of the type that you make a hamoitzi on, yitel yadav, you have to wash your hands. Afilu eini yadei lehem shum tuma, even if you're not aware that your hands had become dirty, or the Mechaber uses the word tuma, which means you're not aware that your hands came into contact with anything that would make them tameh, you still need to wash your hands v'yavarech al netilas yadayim. And you have to make the bracha of netilas yadayim. Let's see if we can get through at least the first Mishnah Berurah over here, which is the yesod, the foundation for hilchos netilas yadayim. Says the Chavetz Chaim is cut off. Kishayavai. Says the Mishnah Berurah, tam takonas netila, the rationale, the basis for the takonas chachamim of netilas yadayim. When we wash netilas yadayim before a suda, that is a din derabanan, and it's a takona. It's a takonas chazal. It was a decree that Chazal made in order to protect something. What is the basis? Why do we wash on bread? So tam takonas netilu mishnei dvarim. There are 2 reasons why we wash netilas yadayim over bread, and it's very, very important that we fix this in our minds. Echad mipnei srach truma. One is as a means to make sure that a proper routine would be established for kaihanim that eat truma. Okay, so what are we saying here? Why do we, Levim, Yisraelim, every Yid, why do we wash the netilas yadayim before we eat bread? So that kaihanim, when they go to eat truma, they should be used to washing their hands before they eat truma. What's going on here? What's at play? Vahainu, says the Mishnah Berurah, kevan diyadayim askani yoishein, since hands are very busy, we touch all sorts of things all the time. Half of us don't even know all the things that we touch. How many times are you busy doing something and you're playing with something in your pocket, you're playing with something on your desk? Yadayim askani yoishein, hands are busy and they touch all sorts of things. V'noigib b'chol davar, they touch all sorts of things. Okay. Ubizman shahaya noyig tuma v'tahara. And back in the day when we had a Beis HaMikdash, that should be built b'meher v'yameinu, meher yibon HaMikdash, but it was man shahaya noyig tuma v'tahara, in the days when we were taking noyig the dinim of tuma v'tahara, v'akayhanim oichle truma, and kayhanim ate truma, and we know truma must be eaten b'tahara. Now, Kayan's not allowed to eat truma if he's tamei. Hayutzrichen lital yadayim midivrei seifrim kaidam achilas truma. Kayhanim were mechuyev to wash their hands before they ate truma, kedei shelo yitamua b'nigasan, so that they should not make the truma tamei by touching it. Now, these lines of the Chavetz Chaim are classic Chavetz Chaim, who chose his words so carefully, and he's walking a tightrope between the Rishonim over here. Let me tell you what the Chavetz Chaim is saying here, and I'll pick it apart in his words. The first thing the Chavetz Chaim told us was, Kevan the yadayim askani yoishein, hands are busy, v'noigim b'chol davar, and they touch all sorts of things. So what? Oh, very simple. Hands touch all sorts of things. Let's imagine a kohen who's an auto mechanic. He's a kohen, and he goes to the Beis HaMikdash to do the avodah when it's time for his family's mishmar, and he also has a parnasa the rest of the year. He's an auto mechanic. Okay, so he's going to the shop to do his work, and his wife packs a lunch for him, and the bread is truma bread. Okay, and the kohen is tar. No problem. So he can eat truma. So he goes to take his truma bologna sandwich or his truma tuna fish sandwich to work with him. Now he wants to eat. Now he's in the middle of installing an alternator in the car, and his hands are greasy. Okay, so he quickly imagine, without netilas yadayim. He quickly wipe off his hands from the grease, go pick up the truma tuna fish sandwich. Now what happens if he gets grease on the tuna fish sandwich? He didn't wipe his hands well. So he looks at the tuna fish sandwich, and he sees he got dirt, he got grease on the tuna fish sandwich. What is he going to do? He's going to throw out the tuna fish sandwich. So what just happened? He just ruined truma. He got truma dirty, and he ruined it, and he's going to throw it out. That's a zilzal in truma. Truma is called kudshim. The pasuk refers to truma as kodesh. It has kedusha truma. So we don't want truma getting grease on it. We don't want truma getting dirty. A farmer, he's working in the field. His hands are muddy. He's going to pick up truma to go eat truma and get the truma dirty? Can't have that. So what did Chazal say? Chazal said, before you eat truma, you got to wash your hands. Why? Because we don't want the truma to get dirty. But how are we going to give that teeth? How are we going to give that takana teeth? So Chazal said, I know how we give that takana teeth. If we want to give a takana like that teeth, what we tell the kohen is, if you touch the truma without washing your hands, you're going to make it tameh with tumah d'Rabbanan. How do we do that? Oh, very simple. We make a gezerah, and we say, stam yadayim, unwashed hands, stam yadayim, shniyim litruma. They are considered to be shniyim. They are considered to have second degree tumah in regards to truma. What does that mean? That means that stam yadayim, unwashed hands, are sheni lituma, and a sheni is able to passel truma. If a kohen's hands are a sheni and he touches truma, the truma becomes a shlishi. By truma, you can have a third degree level of tuma. By chulin, you can't. By chulin, there's an avatuma, a rishon latuma, and a sheni latuma. A sheni cannot make a shlishi. There's no such thing as third degree tuma by chulin, but by truma there is. So Chazal, in their wisdom, they went there and they said, stam yadayim, unwashed hands, whether they're clean, it doesn't matter. They have a din of a sheni latuma. So now, if you touch truma with stam yadayim, you passel the truma. You make it a shlishi. And now it's aka tameh, with tumah d'Rabbanan. So now, kaihanim, whether their hands are clean, doesn't matter what parnasa they have, even if their hands are pristine, they know that they must wash their hands before they ate truma. But then Chazal took it another step. And Chazal said, we want to make extra sure that kaihanim are going to be used to washing their hands before they eat their truma. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to be geyser on Gantz Klal Yisrael, that before they eat a suda with pas, they have to wash. So now everybody, Kahanim, Leviim, Yisraelim, everybody knows that before you eat bread, you have to wash. So now the Kahanim, of course they're going to wash before they eat bread. What do you mean everybody washes before you eat bread? Now why bread? So the Mishnah Berurah is going to say, because most truma was made into bread. Because the raisa, the ikar did of truma is on grain. Most grain is turned into bread. So most truma was turned into bread. Therefore, they made the takana by bread. So that is the first rationale for the takana of netilas yadayim. We got to make sure that the kahanim wash their hands before they eat truma. because we don't want to risk that they're going to get the truma dirty. In order to give that takana teeth, we were geyser on stam yadayim that they have a din of a sheni l'tuma. And now if a kohen touches truma, or anybody touches truma, with stam yadayim, they make it tamei, they make it a shlishi, and they make it a tamei. They make it tamei. So now you must wash before you touch truma, even if your hands are clean, in order to make sure that the kehanim and everybody would be careful that there's a routine. When you go to eat truma, you wash your hands. In order to do that, they were geyser on Gans Klal Yisrael, that Gans Klal Yisrael should wash the netilas yadayim before they eat a suda with bread. We're going to stop over here. We'll go weiter Mir Hashem tomorrow. It's good to be back. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schos of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rabbanah should send Yeshua's for first parnaset shidduchim to all those in need. We should be zeichet to see the Bias Kayal Tzedek. B'meher v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.